Hey guys, we are back to Thursday again already of this new week of learning together. So we've been working on a lot of really awesome stuff with fractions, decimals, number lines, finding out where they all fit on there. So sort of the next part of this whole fraction and decimal puzzle is where do we go with like comparing decimals and comparing numbers to one another, which ones are bigger, which ones are smaller. And in order to get us started with that today, I thought we were going to do an activity for our number talk that's going to get our brain ready for doing that. So when I used to teach spelling, one of the activities that I had my kids do occasionally with their spelling words is to put them in ABC order, in alphabetical order. And this is kind of the same sort of thinking that you're going to do when you order decimals or put them in order from either greatest to least or least to greatest. So I'm going to kind of walk you down here a little path about what did we do when we put our spelling words in alphabetical order. So I created a list. I got car, taco, zebra, sack, bee, sock, and cab, right? So if your teacher ever said, all right, take your list of words and put them in alphabetical order, obviously the ones closest to A go first, the ones closest to Z are going to be at the end of the list. So when you had your list of words like this, what was your strategy? What would you do? Well, hopefully the thing that you said is that you would start by looking at the first letter of all of your words, right? So if you take a look at the first letters in all of our words, I see I've got a C, T, Z, an S, a B, an S, and a C. So some of them I have multiple, words that have the same letter, but there's got to be another strategy to take care of that. So let's kind of look through our list first. So if I'm going alphabetical, starting with A, and we're going to say going from A through Z, is going to be our list here. Obviously A, B, C, and something else that I would do too is I would always write out the alphabet at the top of my paper, right, and so on, so on, so on. So that way I can kind of have a visual check about what's coming next. So there's no A words, there's no B words. Oh, there is a B word. The word is B. So obviously B is going to come before everything else here. So if I'm putting my list in order, B is going to come first. And then what's really important is after I use a word, I would always cross it off, right? So that way I wouldn't be tempted to use it again or to forget it from the entire list. All right, A, B, C. All right, I've got a C word here for car and a C word all the way at cab. So C and C, that doesn't tell me which word is going to come first in my list though. So if I look at the first letter in the same, then I start to look at the second letter. CA, CA doesn't help me too much because they're like tied, right? They have the same letters. No letters are further away from the beginning of the alphabet than the other. So if they're still tied, I go in and I take a look at the next letter in line. So I've got a B and I got an R. Which one's going to come first in the alphabet? And yes, I hear you all screaming, Mr. S, it's the B. And you're right. So C-A-B, cab, is going to come first. So I'll add that to my list. I cross that off. And then, because cab beat car, car is going to come next in my list. And now I'm down to a T, a Z, an S, and then another S. So again, having that alphabet at the top helped me kind of remember, well, which letters come first in the alphabet, right? So I'm going to Q-R-S-T, so I know the S is going to come first, right? So I've got sack and sock. So if I look at my letters, I've got S-A or S-O, which is going to come first in the alphabet. Well, obviously S-A. So sack, cross it off. Sock is going to come next, right? And that leaves me with taco, zebra. So going through my alphabet, I know Z is at the end of the alphabet. T's got to come before Z. So there's taco, cross it off, and zebra. Right? So here's my list in alphabetical order. B, cab, car, sack, sock, taco, zebra. Now, you're like, Mr. S, you must be like losing your brain by being at this remote learning because we are in math class, not spelling class. But the same thing that you would do when you put words in alphabetical order is basically the same thing that you do if you put numbers in order. It's not alphabetical order, but if you're going to take a list of numbers and figure out which ones are going to go in an order, either greatest to smallest or smallest to biggest, right? You do the same sort of thing. So let me just throw a set of numbers here. There's 0.45, 0.14, and 0.30. So 5600ths, 3700ths, 8900ths, 5400ths, 4500ths, 1400ths, and 3000ths, right? So they're all hundredths, which is nice because sometimes you'll get a list of numbers where they're not all the same thing. So sometimes it might give you a tenth, sometimes it might give you a hundredth, sometimes it might give you a whole number and a tenth. So, but this one is just a nice, easy list. So the same idea holds true for ordering decimals as we did when we did alphabetical order for words, right? Now, there's no A, B, C, D, E, F, G when I'm doing numbers, but I do have something that I can rely on, and that's my numbers, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that should get me started, right? So the same strategy I used when I went through my words, no A's, there was a B, so that's going to come first. So I'm going to do the same thing with my numbers. So none of these start with a 0, so I go to my next numbers. Is there anything that starts with a 1? Right there, that one starts with a 1. So 0.14 is going to be my first number because that's the first number that I'm coming into, right? All right, so zeros are done, ones are done. 2 is my next number. Is there anything with a 2 in the tens place? And that's important because we're always going to compare, just like we did the first letter in our words. When we did ABC order, we're going to start with the first number in our numbers that we're comparing. All right, no 2s. 3's next. All right, I see a 0.37 and a 0.30. So just like we did when we were comparing our words and letters up above, I got a 0.3 and I've got a 0.3. Those guys are tied, right? They're the same numbers. So then I have to go to the second number and look at it. There's a 7 there and a 0 there. Well, which one is the smaller between 0 or 7? So, of course, 0 is smaller than 7. So my next number in order is going to be this 0.30 way down on the end. Oh, I got to cross out that 0.14. And then because 0.30 was smaller than 0.37, 0.37 is going to come next in line, right? So you can kind of see as you're starting to narrow down what's left on your list, I've got a 0.5, a 0.8, a 0.5, and a 0.4. So if you look at the numbers you have left, which one is going to come next in smallest to greatest? Well, again, which is your next smallest number? I got 4, 5, 8, 5. So 4 is going to come next. So 0.45 is going to be my next one. Now, I've got a 5 and a 5 and an 8. So that means these two guys right here are going to be the next ones that I write down. But who is going to come first? Who is smaller? Well, they both have a 5, so that doesn't help me. So I got to go look at the next number. There's a 6 there and a 4 there. 4 is smaller than 6, so 4 is going to come next. Then 0.56, and then if I've done my job and everything is crossed off, when I get to the end, there should only be one number left that I got to throw into my order, and I have 0.89, and so that's going to be at the end of my list there, all right? So here's my list of numbers that are written from least to greatest, smallest to largest, and you kind of use that same strategy just like you do when you are putting words in alphabetical order. Always start with the first number, all right? First number smallest is going to come first if your list is going to go least to greatest, or sometimes they'll try to get you and they'll say put your numbers in order from greatest to least. That's kind of like in reverse order, right? So you use your biggest number first. So if our numbers were greatest to least, we'd actually start with the biggest number. But the directions I gave on this one were to go from least to greatest. So basically, if you ever get stuck on how to do your numbers in order, think about alphabetical order with words. Always look at the first number and then go from there. If the first numbers are tied, then you got to go out to the second number. There's going to be times where there might be 3 numbers after the decimal or 4 numbers after the decimal. You might have to go out to those numbers because the other numbers might be tied along the way too. But again, just keep in mind, am I going from small to big or big to small? And that's going to make a difference in how you write your numbers, okay? All right, so this is kind of like your little mini lesson for today. I'm going to stop the video, and then I'm going to pull up a video that's going to kind of walk you through some guided practice, and then you guys will be able to work on some problems just like this for your homework tonight.